Okay, so with this, what I want to just get on here is the Home Affairs Ian Lamarck. We know he's a former magistrate. All that so with all his display of alleged what seems to be ignorance of natural justice and his willingness to spend vast fortunes on pointless reviews and reports, as in the Wiltshire and the likes of, and redacting, would you agree with others that Senator Lamarck's position as a Home Affairs Minister is now untenable?
I think that's a matter for state members to consider. I mean, I really try to keep out of that. As a Jersey taxpayer, I'm fully entitled to have a voice on Jersey political issues, but I don't think I want to. I think that I prefer to leave politics to the politicians. But I would have thought what you'd look for in a person who was Home Affairs Minister would be somebody who would be a champion of fair play and justice, and who would understand that positions of power and authority ought to be used for the benefit of people who don't have power and authority. I know that Wendy Kinnard, when she was Home Affairs Minister, wasn't admired by everybody. That is the nature of politics. But Wendy understood that part of her role was to use her position to champion the cause of the underdog. She was the one who pushed forward new protections for abuse victims. She was the one who championed the rights of women, of minorities in society. And she understood that when you're in the role of a Home Affairs Minister is to champion human rights, equality and fair treatment for everybody. I think that my perception of how that role is being discharged now, it is, as I said earlier, it's become an advocate for a particular establishment view. And maybe people just see it as that is the way it ought to be, but I don't see it as the way it ought to be. And I think you'd look for the incumbent of that position to have a strong sense of fair play and equal treatment. And sometimes just a few words in the right place are suitable for that. For instance, when Senator Marquand had released the Wiltshire report, he could have said some words, and the words would have been, well, I'm releasing this, but I think you ought to know that this is evidence which was never tested in a discipline hearing. I think you ought to know that Mr. Power contests the accuracy and truthfulness of a good deal of what is in here.
Well, but saying that, okay, yeah, I agree, Mr. Lamarck should have said that, but shouldn't the mainstream media be saying that? That the journalists, the paid journalists, shouldn't they be making that clear?
Well, I think that I've got to say that I do like and admire a number of people in the Jersey media, but the Jersey paid media has generally been very disappointing on this issue. They haven't subjected senior politicians to a type of robust challenge that is common in other places. They do seem to be able to get away with an awful lot of sleight of hand without anybody pulling them up. I've worked in a lot of jurisdictions where if some of the things that ministers have done over the past couple of years had been done in, say, Scotland or parts of England, some serious journalists would have been on them like a dog on a rabbit. They would have savaged them for behaving in the way that they did. It seems rather to slip through unnoticed in Jersey. And I don't know what the reason for that is. People say because the media are all lapdogs for the government. I'm not sure that I share that view, but I can only observe that there seems to be an absence of seriously challenging journalism in relation to people who are in powerful positions.
Yeah, that which is such a shame for us, because this is why we're, bloggers like myself are having to do what we're doing. We shouldn't need to do this, is my belief. But that's for another day.
Well, I think I've got to say, Neil, people like yourself bring a good, fresh dimension to the Jersey political debate. I mean, I don't necessarily agree with everything you do, but that's not the point, is it? The point is that there are certain opinions and voices which need to be heard, and they're not getting heard through a conventional media and political process. So
I think what my argument is there is I shouldn't be having to do what I do.
No, I mean, if there was a more proactive media, you shouldn't. But I think it's the way of the world now, that the sort of people's media, the honorary media, if you want to call them that, are bound to be influential. And I just fully applaud that. People ought to be able to look at different perspectives. And I don't think you get a big mix of views in the paid media in Jersey, but I think that, the unofficial media, if that's what you call yourself, it often presents a very different picture.
Yeah, well, we're actually called that. They've made a name for us. We're the unaccredited media, but that doesn't really mean a great deal.
Yes.
Okay, what I'd like to do now, Mr. Power, is we've now got a new police chief, Mr. Mike Boron. Have you got any advice for him?
Well, I think he's a very senior and respected officer who I'm sure will ask for any advice from me if he wants it, but I suspect he might get his advice from elsewhere. I've heard nothing but positive reports. I know that he's very well regarded in senior police circles, and I hear a lot of positive things about the work he's doing in Jersey. I hope that he can build on the platform that we created. Let's look at where we were in 2000. A lot of progress has been made when I was appointed up to 2000, but an awful lot has been done. We've widened the recruitment base, there are more graduates in the force. We've modernised, we've brought in new technology, we've trained up a lot of officers to operate in a modern way which is internationally credible.
As is evident, we must say, as is evident in the HMIC reports.
As is evident in the HMIC reports. We created a platform for the next generation of leadership to take forward, and I'm sure that he'll address that in a positive way. He certainly has my best wishes for success in protecting the people of Jersey, because protecting the people of Jersey is what people want to hear about. They don't want to hear about arguments between senior police officers. What they want to hear about is what's going to happen to make my streets safer and to make sure that Jersey continues to be a safe and pleasant place to live. And I think that, I would hope that Mike is well able to take that agenda forward. And I wish him the very best in doing that.
I've got to ask, after what our government, and it's my belief and it's an opinion, that I think it's disgraceful what our government has done to you and to DCO Harper, former DCO Harper. Wouldn't Mike Boron, our new police chief officer, thinking, hang on a minute, they might or can do that to me?
Well, I think the answer to that is already on the table. That what you've got to do is break the one-to-one relationship between the minister and the police chief, which is bad for independence in criminal justice. You need to create a proper independent police authority. Now, I know that Mike has been promised that, but I was also promised it when I was appointed in 2000, and quite honestly, if they'd have told me then that you'll end up in a one-to-one accountability with a single politician, I wouldn't have taken the job in 2000. I took the job in 2000 because I was promised that I'd be working to a proper independent police authority. Now, I know that promise has been repeated, but this term I have, it's a Jersey promise. It might happen one day, but time moves at a different pace in Jersey sometimes. An independent police authority is being promised now. It was promised to me on the day of my appointment in 2000. It hasn't happened yet.
Okay, I'd like to just before we end is I think there should be again. I'd like to get back again to the real issue. I thank you very much for this in-depth interview. I know it's a chance that you're not able to get with the mainstream media, and it does deserve more. But back to the real issue, the abuse victims. Have you got anything you would like to say? Because our media and our government are saying that yourself and Lenny Harper gave them false expectations and the rest of it. But although, in contrary to that, the Jersey Care Leavers Association give their full support to yourself and Lenny. The majority of them do. We can't speak for all. But have you got a message or anything you'd like to say to the abuse survivors and victims?
Yes, I mean I would. Yeah. Firstly, to apologise for the fact that when I'm speaking, when I'm giving interviews, I make the mistake that so many other people make, and that is I don't give them enough attention. Occasionally I remember to say, look, the most important people in this are the victims, and I keep forgetting to say that. Just as I keep forgetting to say this is not about the abuse inquiry, it's about the abuse, but I remember to say that sometimes. I think if you go back to the media work that I did during the inquiry, I was always careful to say, look, it's the reality of these cases that not everything goes to court. Not everything that should go to court does go to court. And some people who committed abuse years ago get away with it because the evidence just can't be got together in the way that you'd like. What I did promise at the time is, while I'm Chief Officer, I promise that everything possible will be done. I believe that when I was Chief Officer, everything possible was done. Obviously, I can't speak what's happened subsequently. But I can only say to the abuse survivors that I'm not going to give up on this. That if the Jersey authorities want to keep, if you like, picking this argument, then I'm going to stay with the argument. I'm going to say, look, stop talking about the abuse inquiry, talk about the abuse. And I'm going to keep trying to remind everybody that what people are looking for is not a debate among well-paid people about how certain management processes worked in the summer of 2008. What they're actually looking for is solid information about what Jersey is going to do about the historic child abuse problem and how it's going to convince everybody that that sort of thing cannot possibly happen again and that everything possible is being done. I'm not sure that I'm convinced that everything possible is being done. I'm not sure that the island is convinced that everything possible has been done already. It might be that all the cases that could go to court have gone to court, but I'm not quite sure that the issue of cover-up has been addressed in a forthright way. Who knew about this? Who should have known about it? What did they tell and who did they tell it to and what was done about it? I think there is still a perception, I have to say I share this, that there may still be people in positions of authority who are associated either with abuse or with covering it up. And I think that is where people still feel uncomfortable and where there is more work to be done.
It's very worrying. It's very worrying knowing that we could have senior civil servant or senior people in positions of power that are, let's say, a little bit suspect. That's got to be unnerving for...
Well, it's worrying for two reasons. One, it's worrying if it's true, but even if it's not true, it's still worrying because people don't know the answer. And I don't think the answers given so far have been convincing enough. It maybe I've missed something.
No,
but I don't recall anybody representing the Jersey government saying, we have looked as thoroughly as we possibly can at the issue of cover-up and we are satisfied that there's nothing more possibly can be done. I don't think that box has been ticked yet, if I can use that phrase. And I think that is one of the loose ends that's hanging about over this case.
Yeah. Okay, thank you very much for the in-depth interview. It was much appreciated. I'm sure we'll do this again sometime.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. Thank you.
Thank you.